Guys, good morning. I apparently was not on camera for my entire introduction. So I'm here now, and my camera's fuzzy, and today's apparently the day of technical issues for me. So, we're going to back this train up and try this all again. Let me fix my camera. There we go. All right. Now that I'm here. Good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in Southdowns and others of you living in the future. And welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kalbardr. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Argent Lamp, Companion of the Falcon's Faith and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. Now, since today's show is coffee-themed, today's coffee of choice is the chocolate cappuccino by New England Coffee, but with a bit of vanilla creamer, because yes, I'm feeling fancy. Now that all those technical issues are out of the way and the introductions are done, so for those of you tuned in for the first minute, you did see a new addition to the show, the Grand Wall of Patrons. We do have our first Patreon subscribers. Thank you to Their Excellencies Seneva and Wistrick, and to Senora Elia Bessina, my first two patrons. So you guys are amazing, and I appreciate you. And if the rest of you want to help support Kalbardr's Corner and the now 5 other channels that we support, patreon.com/Kalbardr's Corner. All right, now to the meat of the show. So today's show is I'm not gonna say a controversial topic. This is not definitely a hard-hitting topic. This is not the what is fealty or the sort of the deep of that. It is definitely something that is more artisan focused, but it does have applications to sort of the other disciplines. And the idea is that it is perfect getting in the way of done. This is a topic that I'm not gonna say preached. I guess I'll say preached before to friends of mine, specifically to my wife. Who struggles with this, and she will argue with me about that. So I'm glad she's asleep and not here live to argue with me. So the sort of general idea, and then I'll get into some specifics and take questions from the crowd. And hello, for those of you watching, thank you. I see a couple new faces in the audience, so cool. So the idea of perfect getting the way of done is that you worry so much about a project, and the project being anything, being absolutely perfect before you present it, that you never actually get it done. So I see this a lot in the artisan community within the ANS fairs or competitions or whatever, that it turns into, specifically, everybody talks about the rabbit hole effect, right? And the idea that, well, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to, I've got to add this thing too, right? Because it's, they used, I got to use period needles, and I've got to do this, and I've got to add this piece, and I add this piece, right? So instead of just finishing a thing and presenting the thing, you end up fighting yourself and finding new things to do and finding new things to add, and you never get to complete the thing. You never sort of get the completion effect. So for me, it becomes there's sort of a quality and a quantity effect, or quality and quantity measurement of projects. Yes, you want to produce quality products. You don't want to just throw junk on a table and present it. And this is whether it's a project or a class or an event or whatever. But also, doing something is better than doing nothing. Now, I will caveat and admit that I am new to the artisan world. I'm new to specifically to the ANS world. I mean, I've done science fairs and projects, and I've built things before. I've only entered a couple of ANS fairs, but I have taught a metric ton of classes on various subjects, from heraldry to gaming to current Middle Ages things, and sort of I try to stay engaged. One of the reasons I've been able to teach so many classes is because I worry about I worry about getting content out. Because even if just me teaching the class is better than not. And that may sound weird, but the class, so if I present a class on a topic that isn't perfect, like I'm not trying to get it to doctoral level thesis before I present a 1-hour class on it. Just the act of me presenting the class has taught somebody something, and that was better than me not showing up. Now, this is obviously my opinion, and we could argue about this. And if you have opinions or thoughts or counterpoints, please pop them in the comments. I know we seem to have a couple of new viewers today, so please, this is very much a discussion that I like to have. So if you have thoughts, throw them up there. Also, introduce yourself if you're new. Throw your name, kingdom, where you're from, fun factoid about yourself in the comments. I'd appreciate seeing that. But yeah, so the idea of perfect. One, first of all, nothing's ever going to be perfect. You're never going to achieve perfection of a thing, right? Yes, you can get a perfect score. I've seen them. I've seen good scores, but you always know there's something better you could do. There's, especially for classes, especially for education, you're never going to achieve perfection. You're never going to have that the magnum opus piece, right? You're going to have pieces that are really good, and there have pieces that are really, really well researched, whatever, right? But having those progressives along the way so you can teach them is a much better option. And this is something that I was actually, so last night we had a homecoming social here in Meridia's where we just kind of got together and hung out and talked about various subjects. And one of the subjects was there was an artisan's room. We talked about Stella Nova, which is sort of an entry-level, novice-level A&S fair that they do here in Meridia's. And there were some of the laurels in there talking, and they have an opinion of this. I think the opposite of this. Basically, their opinion was if it's not completely accurate, not completely done, don't submit it. Don't do it. You don't want to do it. And I disagree. I disagree with that. I think that leads to burnout and leads to people not being excited. So as humans, and this is something that I know is specific to me, that I am big on. I love checkboxes. I love being able to complete a thing, and I know that the general humans are too. You want that cookie, you want that little acknowledgement, even if it's just literally you checking your own box, saying, "Look, I did a thing. I made that tunic. I finished that report. I taught that class." Having that completion point gives you the serotonin boost. Having 100 completion points gives you lots of serotonin boosts versus one big completion point. I'll pull in a bit of my project manager. So mainly I'm a project manager, and I do a Scrum and Agile and sort of all the sort of IT software development projects. One of the things that we do with sprints and sort of incremental improvements is that we get something done. So we do some small improvement with the idea that small improvement, we're already planning for the next small improvement. So it incrementally builds on itself. But it's so every week, every 2 weeks, every sort of chunk of time, we can show we've done something. Because generally we're working for a client. So within an arts and sciences world, I think that's really important when you're working on, let's say you're making your first tea tunic, right? Hi, everybody. So fun story, and this is one of the benefits of doing a live show. I just lost power to my house. So this is now the second technological issue I've had, no, third actually today. We first lost internet about 10 minutes before the show, and then as I was starting the show, you saw that I was not on camera. So I'm back. I'm going to run this rest of the stream from my cell phone, which will be a ton of fun. So I'm going to go back on the porch. All right, so where was I? I don't know where I lost everybody. I hope I'm back now. So this is just a blasty blast here. Give me a minute. Let me get out here and get settled. All right, so let's say you're making your first tea tunic.
you've never sewn before, and I'm using this example because that's literally something I'm working on at the moment. I've never sewn before. And so my goal is to start a project. I've picked a project I'm working on. I'm making a simple tunic. I want to, right, but my first step is not to make the finished product, right? I'm not even worried about the finished product right now. I'm worried about making the mock-up. My first goal is to make the mock-up. And that is the first increment, is to make the mock-up and get that done, right? So and part of that is going to be me learning how to sew, how to do the basics, how to draft a pattern, how to cut properly, how to use a sewing machine. So I'm going to use a sewing machine first, right? That's not period. The Scythians didn't have sewing machines. But I'm going to use a sewing machine for my first one because it's the easiest way to get it done quickly. When that's done, I'll be able to present a thing. I'll be able to show, look, I have made this tea tunic. I have done a thing that has furthered my goal, and I can talk about how I got there, how I drafted the pattern, because I had to do some sort of studying on Scythian culture, on the tunics they had, and look at the fabrics they use. So I already know what fabric I'm using, right? My first one's made out of purple cotton. Like, I'm not making it out of silk and linen, the first one. So when that's done, my next step is going to be, okay, now let's do another one, except sewing it by hand. I'm still not going to use the good fabric. I'm not worried about fabric choice. I'm going to do another purple linen one. But I'm going to sew it all by hand so I can understand how that works. So I'll start powering through sewing one by hand. When I get that done, I can then present that and show, look, I have now sewn this by hand. Here's how they would have sewn this with these types of thread, these types of needles, whatever. The third iteration of that is then going to be, okay, now what are my fabric choices, right? How do I look at which fabrics that I use, and then what fabric am I going to use? Because I live in Southern Alabama. Other than when the 2 months of winter we might get, it's flipping hot here. I'm not going to sew it. I didn't use, but it makes the most sense for the environment I'm going to be wearing it in. All right, I'm trying to catch up on comments here, guys. This is a bit of a new format for me, so bear with me here. Oh, cool. So yeah, as Tony, I see you there. You talk sewing professionally. Setting yourself up for sewing success handout. That's actually really cool. Yes, if you will send that to me, Tony, I'll share it out on the Kalbardr corner page. That sounds like a cool handout. And yes, Lord Fry of Kent says, I suspect people of the time would have used sewing machines if they could have. You're absolutely correct. That's actually one of those plausible things of, well, if they had hammers, they would have used them. If they had saws, they would have used them. If they had XYZ, they would have used it. You're right. It's actually how I got down the rabbit hole one time of did Vikings have duct tape? And the answer is yes, they did. They had fabric and they had pitch or tar, and they put fabric and tar together, which is essentially duct tape. Vikings had duct tape. So I think I was, Runa mentioned that I was back on the sprints thing when I cut out. So I was talking about iterations, and that's an important thing when we talk about sprints and project management, is the idea that each step of the way you're showing some improvement, right? So from a artistic perspective, if I've got, I see at least one Laurel watching. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and there may be some things on this, but in my opinion, it's going to be better for me to be able to show a starting point and an ending point and the progress along the way than it would be to show up day one with a fully embroidered, fully beaded, perfectly period Elizabethan gown, right? Because then you're like, oh, okay, good, you did a thing. Great. That's not exciting, right? But if I show up day one with, here's a tea tunic that I made that's meh, it's put together, I sewed it great. And then over a year or two, I show improvement for in a year, I'm now putting out, period garments that are well constructed, that are hand done with bronze needles and the whole thing, right? That to me makes more sense and is able to show that progression of skill. Instead of spending 3 years in your, hiding in your hermit hole, learning that same thing. It's the same idea. You're doing the same process, right? You're still having to learn the things, but you're not actively showing the progress. I think that's important to do. So I know when I teach classes, I follow the same mentality. So I've taught classes on heraldry, on gaming, on current Middle Ages, siege engines. I've taught a Scythians class, because generally I'll find a topic I want to teach a class on, and I'll commit to teaching a class. I'll be like, hey, yeah, I'm teaching this class in a month. And I'll spend that month putting the class together. Because it gives me a deadline. I have to, like, it's a rush, admittedly. It's a focus goal, right? If I don't have that goal of I'm going to teach this class by X date, it'll never be done. Because I've got classes right now that I'm going to go back and redo, that I'm going to upgrade. That I taught one of my heraldry classes I taught was on heraldic postures, so the orientations of animals and things. Well, one of the things in it talks about the things that are non-animals and how those function. Right, they don't have postures; they have orientations. That's a whole subject in itself. But I need to add a slide for that, because I was in a class with some other herald people or heraldic minded folks, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to talk about this too. This is something you should add as a thing, right?" So I already have the second iteration of this class. I finished the class out. I went in, put a slide note in, say, "Hey, update this slide later." And before I teach the class again, I'll go back and add that slide. But in teaching that class that day, I learned some things. Other people learned some things, and I was able to improve that piece so that it was a better class in the long run, versus me spending another 3 weeks on it or a month on it, or having never taught it, and it's not accomplishing the goal. Let's see. So Fiken says, same reason I've talked about my failures in learning wiring. Correct. So yeah, Fiken, actually, that's a great point. So in doing things, right? If we do things and hide them and don't talk about the progress and our failures, which is, I think, important, because learning is failing is learning, learning is failing. If we talk about our failures, then other people can see our failures and understand that not everybody's perfect. Even people that are laurel level, whatever's, screw up a scroll or mess up a seam or sew a sleeve on backwards. And it then encourages other people to do that art thing we're doing, right? So with Fiken's wire weaving, that's actually really cool that he's doing that. And I've enjoyed watching the progress of that, because not only is he learning how to do it, he's also teaching sort of vicariously through that. And that I now understand more about Viking wire weaving than I did a week ago, just from the few pictures and posts he's put up. It's not perfect. It's matter of fact, it looks like crap. But you can look back a week ago and look to today's pictures, and you can see the difference, see the improvements he's made. And sorry, Fiken, I love you. But it allows that progression. Let's see. McGregor Historic Games says, so I have a big Celtic art piece that he's been commissioned. Just one face of one of the human figures to finish. First of all, yes, drawing faces is terrible. So I concur with that. And Kisa, my girlfriend, will also agree. Faces are the bane of the existence to all of us. So yes, I commiserate. I have no advice for you, my friend. Just suck it up and do it. That's the thing. Let's see. So yeah, so one of the things I talk to my wife a lot, and because she has this problem. She is striving for perfection at all times, and when she goes on her project, it goes from, I want to make a fancy cat hood for our girlfriend for her birthday or Christmas. It then turns into, well, I'm going to teach a class on this, and then I got to do a handout on it, and then I got to do a research paper. So what was a class for her on how to construct it turned into, she now has a research paper that she's going to be submitting as a fully out research on fool's hoods. Because not only did she go into how to construct them, she also went into the history of them and how they're put together and why they exist and the different styles of them, why they had ears versus why they had bells or floofy dudes or whatever. Now, it's amazing. She's done amazing work, and I'm glad she's finally teaching it. Like she's actually teaching it next weekend. But it took encouraging her to get that class out. because she was spending so much time just continuing the research that she never was going to sort of commit to teaching the class anywhere. Let's see, so this is from Runa. Several of my Laurel friends have made a point this year to share their fails. It's important for all of us to see the iterations and see what they learn by doing so. Remember Lorenzo Petrucci's papyrus? Yep. Or Jen DiMatteo O'Neill's sleeve journey? Yes. Okay, yeah. So Master Lorenzo did a thing. We had a mystery box challenge back in October, I think. Somewhere like, yeah, October, where we did basically we got a box of random stuff and we had to make some sort of A&S project out of it. So Master Lorenzo, who is a Laurel, went above and beyond and said, okay, I'm going to do something a little more impressive. He had a bunch of Cornhusk dolls, like a doll kit in the box. And he decided he was going to take that and try to make papyrus out of it because the concept worked, right? It was an epic failure. But in that, he learned why it failed, right? He learned, oh, okay, this works for this reason. It doesn't work for this reason. And I don't remember all the details, but it's something about the glue, the way he did the glue or whatever. But in that, he learned something. And the rest of us he shared that with learned something about papyrus because I don't know how papyrus is constructed, but I could see by what he did how it should have been done, and then what he did differently, and why it failed because of the corn husk, right? Because it wasn't the right reeds or it wasn't the right glue. And so yeah, that was a thing. I'm not familiar with Countess Kissa's sleeve journey, but I'm sure the story is of a similar nature. I have seen, it may be one thing, I have seen someone who sewed the same sleeve on backward like 4 times. That may be the same story, but anywho. So yeah. Now, the flip side of this, and this is the other sort of weird point, and I mentioned the idea of quality versus quantity. Sometimes quality is good, and sometimes quantity is good. So, my general approach is quantity. I would personally rather put out 100 decent classes than 2 top-notch classes, right? Because it allows me to get more teaching out there, more people educated. My classes, so like my games classes. Anybody watches my Watch Play Wednesdays knows that I research the game in its how it's played. I'm not digging into the history. I'm not digging into a lot of the really meat. I do some of that. I do look into a lot of it, just sort of as I'm working. But it's not the bulk of what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to get more people playing games. That's my ultimate goal, is to get more people playing games. I can't do that if I'm only teaching 1 class a year on games. If I'm teaching 100 classes a year on games, then I'm going to inspire 100 more people to then go research games. And then those 100 people are going to inspire 100 people. And so it becomes basically a giant pyramid scheme of games teaching. All of us have that opportunity to research and teach more stuff to then inspire more things. So I've learned more about, CNI, calligraphy and illumination. I've learned more about sewing. I've learned more about some other stuff this year than I have because I've just been taking classes because more people are teaching right now, or at least more people are accessible to me that are teaching because of everything being online. And I found new passions that I didn't know I had, or I've also found things that I went, oh, that's a thing I know how to do now, but I don't want to do it anymore. Like I enjoy doing scribble arts, but I don't really want to do it. Like that was fun. I'll do it occasionally, but I realized Scrabble's not my thing. I can paint. I know how to paint. I know how to. I get the process, and I understand like what I'm doing wrong. But it's not a passion of mine. But I know that now, whereas I wouldn't have known that before. I've been doing a lot of archery recently, right? I'm not the best at it. I'm using a crappy, fiberglass bow. I'm not using period arrows. I'm not using a period bow. But I'm starting to shoot. I'm starting to get used to that. I'm starting to understand what the process is. I'm not worried about being perfect. Because I'm sort of starting that path. So stepping to the other side of this also goes to the fighters out there to talk about archery. I'm also a heavy fighter. So if I have any fighters watching, it's the same thing. Pick up your stick, pick up your shield, go fight, right? No, you're not going to win crownless tomorrow. Like that's not the purpose of fighting is not to win crownless tomorrow. The purpose of fighting is to improve. Improve your physical health, improve your prowess on the field, improve your franchise. The purpose of everything we do is to improve. But also share that. Share your fighting. Share your things. Pick up a new weapon. So if you are a fighter, if you're a knight or you're a past super duke, but you've always fought sword and shield, all right, cool. Go grab a spear. Go grab a madu. Go grab a fight two stick. Do something new, and then help teach that. Help show other fighters that you can do other stuff. Pick up a new persona. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're really interested in Scythian stuff or in Norse cultures or in some of the East Asian things, start looking into that. Start doing that stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect from day one, but you're going to be out there. That's one thing that we've been working on with a lot of DI stuff is more representation of those non-European cultures, right? I'm doing Scythians right now. We have very little information about Scythians other than what's in the burial mounds, and so my first attempt at this isn't going to be perfect. But I'm slowly working to teach class. So I taught a class on who were the Scythians. It was a very basic overview of Scythians. It's not a deep dive. It's not a perfect class at all. But it got conversations started. It got my name, connected. It got me connected to other people. It got me talking to other people who do Scythian things. Sort of got those conversations started for me so that I could find new people to talk to and learn more. Maybe we should have a 30-day calligraphy challenge. Oh yeah, so there you go. That's a thing too. So those of you out there who are like in charge of things, that's a way you can help people get better at stuff and sort of get going things. Meridian's has been really good about this, doing little Scribble challenges where we have themed things and then giving out prizes. Do that. Do some 30-day challenge, a 30-day calligraphy thing, a 30-day Pell work challenge. Encourage people to post videos. Encourage people to be involved in that, and I think it's going to help a lot to get people past that. All right. Questions? I feel like I've rambled a lot. And thank you all for sticking with me for this. This is definitely not my normally produced show here. I'm sitting on my porch, literally drinking coffee out here. It's been a day, guys. So let's see. I'm checking through comments here. Yep. So Griffin's Moon said, yes, sharing your failures is important. Yes, I completely. Yes, sharing your failures is important, especially if you're the examples. If you're the Laurels or the Pelicans or the Knights or the Peers or the Royals, sharing your failures is important. That's a weird balance too. That's a whole different thing. Let's see. What about offices? Oh, okay. That's a good question, Viking. So Viking brought up, what about offices? So I'm going to extrapolate. So he means, what about doing your the Pelican work, the sort of the service work, right? That's a thing. So yes, failing in that's first of all, failing in that's going to happen too, and it's also better to do the office than not do it well. Now, because the issue we have right now, we actually talked about this in the burnout episode, and because of Viking is bringing this up because he and I are working and Master Shimon are working on a project. And Runa as well are working on a sort of an administrative college burnout, helping people get more excited about doing some of the work. But the idea of that is that we need more people doing jobs, right? So one thing I've noticed in Osprey here, but also sort of across the known world, is that we have the same people doing jobs, same people being exchequer or seneschal or herald or whatever, and people are tired of doing stuff, right? But it's because nobody's willing to step up, nobody's willing to help those people do it, nobody's willing to offer to lend a hand in those jobs or to learn the jobs. So if you have any interest in being one of those things, step up, right? Offer to learn, offer to be a deputy, offer to shadow somebody on a job role, right? And start learning how to be an exchequer, learning how to be a seneschal, learning how to be a herald. Everybody's willing to teach. Everybody may not be good at teaching. Everybody's willing to teach because we all want new people helping do these jobs. Now, the caveat of that is, don't take a job you're not capable of doing, right? If you can't count, don't be an exchequer. Like that's setting yourself up for failure, and that's the caveat. But maybe you can help the exchequer, help them do a thing, help them with something they're doing. Even if it's just providing some moral support for them. Not everybody's gonna be good at every job, but you can at least. But somebody doing it is better than nobody doing it, or somebody doing it better than somebody's doing it is better than somebody who doesn't want to be doing it. All right, let's see. So better to do the office acceptably than not do it at all. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just be flexible, engaged, and turning your reports on time. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, turning your reports on time. I agree with that. Now, with Seneschal, with Exchequer, and with Minister of Children, those are three very sort of high-ranking jobs as far as risk. High-risk jobs. That's what I was looking for. So be careful of those three, and don't do them if you don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm not like I never want to be an exchequer. I'm good with spreadsheets, but I'm not comfortable dealing with other people's money. I don't need to know MOC because I like teaching children, but I'm not comfortable managing children. I know that about me. But like I can learn to be the other jobs. I can learn to do, obviously I'm a herald. I can learn to be a seneschal. I can learn to be, a marshal, those sort of things. Let's see. So Lord Fry can mention my mug. Yes, this is one of my favorite mugs. It is my caffeinated mug. And then Kate asked what kind of coffee. So this is the New England chocolate cappuccino from New England Coffee with vanilla creamer. Ordinarily, I use regular coconut creamer. But my Amazon order got delayed, so I had to go to the store and find some replacements. Fortunately, I was able to find the same brand and on clearance in vanilla. So I'm feeling fancy. It's one of my favorite mugs. I have one thing. So I'll actually say this. I mentioned on a previous show. If anybody out there makes mugs, I'm looking for a period medieval mug that is big enough for my big hands. So because I do some of these with guests, and I like to be in carb for those. So I like to be a little fancier, which I'll talk about that in a second. So if you have if somebody wants to sponsor Kalbardr's Corner and send Cal a mug, I would happily appreciate it. We'll give you shout outs on my Patreon wall. Thanks. Let's see here. If I Can Talks About Every Tool is a Hammer by Adam Savage. That is a great book. Actually one that I may suggest doing from one of my Unpack Your Shit episodes, because that's a good book. Let's see. Ogata says, basically, success happens when you have repeatedly addressed a problem and repeatedly figured out a solution. I like that. That's a good quote, Ogata. Thank you for that. If I cared about being perfect in my job, I would be permanently unemployed. The kids like me, and I know I've done something right because kids give me the pictures they've colored. Oh, that's awesome. That's Lord Fry Kent mentioned that. Yeah, and that's the thing. Just because if you don't think you're perfect at a job, you're probably right. Because nobody's gonna be perfect, but somebody appreciates you, and I hope somebody tells you something. And I'll actually say this about everybody else out there: if you see somebody doing a job that you appreciate, let them know that. Because I know one of the things that I appreciate personally is when people show up to my streams and say, "Hey, Cal, you're doing a great job. I appreciate what you're doing," or they mention me in a meeting or a court, things like that. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing. So make sure you're telling people out there that you appreciate them and that you like what they're doing. And if you have somebody you can help them, supporting their Patreon, for instance, or providing them some advice, giving them showing them some book you have, giving them a resource like a handout from a class you took or taught. Put those out there. That's important. Let's see. Tony. Oh, that's actually a good point, Tony. Tony says, I like the idea of fighting the all or nothing mental barrier with fostering a culture of helping. Many hands make light work. That's a great point. And actually, I like that for two different points here. So the all or nothing mental barrier from a service side is as exchequer, I need to be able to do all the exchequer things. Or as herald, I need to be able to do all the herald things. I'll speak from a heraldic perspective for a second. So in the College of Heralds from Meridiace, we have 12 of us in the Kingdom heraldic offices doing 12 different jobs, because no one person is good at all of them. I think that's really important to know. So just because you're the herald for your local group doesn't mean you have to be good at doing voice heraldry and book heraldry and the paperwork and submission designs and armory. You don't have to be good at all of that. You're the one managing it. You're the one helping make sure it gets done. You don't have to be the one to do all of it, right? So like exchequer has certain things they have to do, and I'm not familiar with that. That my wife is our exchequer, and I don't know all the stuff she does. But you don't have to be good at all of it. Just make sure it gets done. And then also from the artistic side, right? So the all or nothing mentality, right? So you don't have to start off from day one with period materials and period needles and period thread and all the documentation. Just make a thing and then improve it, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing from the beginning. Just do something. Something is better than nothing. Look into J. Henderson artifacts from mugs. They do reproduction stoneware. Okay, cool. I will look into that. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been needing a good mug because I love my. I've got the caffeinated mug. I've got a Harry Potter color change mug. I've got my Marvel comics with the Hulk that likes to fade into my background because he's green. You know, it's fun. I have a new one coming for Christmas too that I totally didn't buy for myself, but so it'll be after Christmas mug. I'm excited about that one. Let's see. If you want more good quotes on the nature of failure, check out Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. All right, I will do that, Ogata. Although you're winking, so it may be a joke, but I'll check that out regardless. So, all right, well, guys, this has been a ton of fun today. Sorry again for all the technical difficulties. It is one of the banes of doing a live show is this thing happens. So, internet drops, power drops. Actually, yesterday. So one thing Kalbardr Corners does is we also support the Outlands Royal Tea, which is Their Majesty from the Outlands do a bi-weekly interview show, and I run the tech for it. 10 minutes in the show yesterday, His Majesty's computer just said nope and cuts completely out. So it happens to the best of us. It's part of doing this. So yeah. But on that note, a couple things coming up for me. So in 2 weeks, we have Their Highnesses of the Mists will be joining me. So it's the Princess Sarah and Prince, I've forgotten his name now, Patrick. Thank you. They'll be joining me to talk about the fighter and consort relationships. So I'm really interested in this topic. They brought this up during the Kerpo a couple weeks ago and talking about how their dynamic is a little different and how they do fighter consort stuff. And it's something I'm interested in. So it's something I want to talk about of how there's different ways to do fighter and consort relationships, whether it's a couple or not a couple or different crown setups. So that'll be really interesting to hear their perspective on that, both from somebody who is currently sitting royal, but also from a different coast. So that'll be neat. And next week, next Sunday evening, we'll be starting a new show here on Kalbardr's Corner. We're talking with Duke Sean from SCA Coaches Corner, based out of Artemisia, on what makes a knight. So we'll be talking about all the things that are knightly that are not fighting. So that'll be fun. And yeah, and of course, What's Playing Wednesdays every other Wednesday. So looking forward to that. And if you're not busy this Wednesday, we will be supporting Fighting the World, which is Baron Wistrick and Bruce, whose full name I've forgotten now. Wistrick and Bruce do a bi-weekly or every twice a month show on Rapier Melee. So if you're a Rapier fighter out there and want to watch some Melee shows, Fighting the World on Facebook is another great one to follow. So, well, guys, this is I'm out of coffee, and I'm gonna go. Hopefully, I have power back. I think Keith said we have power back, so I'm gonna go deal with that and see what happened. This has been a ton of fun. Tune in 2 weeks for Their Highnesses, or next week for What Makes a Knight. And as always, I've been Kalbardr. This has been Coffee with Cal. Thanks, guys. Can I do brand? Hold on, guys. Watch.